Before he could legally vote, Frank William Abagnale Jr. had already lived a lifetime of incredible identities. By the time most teenagers were worrying about exams or first dates, Frank was slipping into new personas with astonishing ease, each more daring than the last. He posed as an airline pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, and even a college professor, roles that demanded not just costumes, but confidence, quick thinking, and a masterful ability to read people. With these disguises, he cashed millions in fraudulent checks, moving undetected through dozens of countries and outsmarting authorities at every turn. Imagine a teenager, not yet 21, leading law enforcement on a dizzying international chase, armed with nothing but charm, wit, and an uncanny ability to make people believe whatever he told them. Frank's escapades were so audacious they seemed almost like scenes from a Hollywood film. His story is a testament to the power of confidence and the vulnerability of the systems we trust. Frank exposed just how easily trust can be manipulated and how appearances can open doors that should remain closed. But behind the bravado was a lonely, desperate teenager. It all began with the painful breakup of his family, a runaway teen, left to fend for himself after his parents' bitter divorce, searching for belonging and survival in a world that suddenly felt cold and unforgiving. At just 16, Frank ran away to New York City with only a few dollars in his pocket. He quickly realized that his youthful appearance was a major obstacle to finding honest work, and the city's endless possibilities seemed just out of reach. Out of necessity, he began forging documents, first altering his age on his driver's license, then discovering the magic and power of checks. Each forgery was a small act of survival, but also a step deeper into a world of deception. A well-crafted check, presented with confidence, became his key to instant cash and the start of his criminal career. With every successful con, Frank's confidence and the scale of his schemes grew. Frank's journey is a captivating look into the mind of a brilliant, misguided young man who turned the world into his stage and its financial systems into his playground. His story reminds us that sometimes the line between genius and criminal is thinner than we think. Frank's first check frauds were simple: writing checks for more than he had, exploiting the delay before banks discovered the fraud. He quickly learned the banking system was built on trust and exploitable delays. Studying banking procedures, he opened multiple accounts under different names, creating a web of transactions that confused banks. Soon he was crafting counterfeit checks from scratch, studying legitimate designs, watermarks, and magnetic ink. He learned about printing and graphic design, producing forgeries that fooled even experienced tellers. But his real genius was in presentation: sharp dress, articulate speech, and an air of authority. People rarely questioned someone who looked like they belonged. Perception became reality. Frank was no longer just a boy writing bad checks. He was a master performer, crafting illusions of wealth and respectability. His psychological insight was as important as his technical skill. The stage was set for even bigger cons. Frank graduated to floating, depositing checks from distant banks, exploiting the days or weeks it took to clear. He learned routing numbers and check-clearing logistics by posing as a student and charming bank managers into revealing industry secrets. With this knowledge, he opened accounts in one city, deposited forged checks from another, and withdrew funds before the fraud was discovered. He became a financial ghost, leaving a trail of bounced checks and baffled bankers. The sheer volume and spread of his activities made it nearly impossible for law enforcement to connect the dots. Frank meticulously tracked his schemes, always staying one step ahead. The pressure was immense, but so was the thrill. Outsmarting a supposedly foolproof system became his signature move. The float allowed him to amass a fortune while remaining a phantom. Frank realized he needed a cover so powerful that no one would question him. He noticed the respect and trust given to airline pilots and decided to become one. By sweet-talking Pan Am's headquarters and forging an employee ID, he obtained a custom pilot's uniform and a fake FAA license. As First Officer Frank Williams, he cashed Pan Am payroll checks with ease. Tellers were starstruck by the young aviator. The uniform also let him deadhead, catch free flights in the cockpit jump seat, expanding his schemes worldwide at no cost. He learned pilot jargon and behaviors, blending in with real pilots and deflecting detailed questions. Frank flew over 2 million miles, visited 26 countries, and lived a life of luxury, all financed by expertly forged checks. The pilot persona was his most successful and longest-running con. It opened doors everywhere, making him nearly untouchable. His confidence and adaptability made the disguise flawless. The world became his playground. With free global travel, Frank's criminal enterprise went international. European banks, less prepared for his sophisticated scams, became easy targets. He cashed forged Pan Am payroll checks in cities like Paris, Rome, and Stockholm, often treated like a celebrity. By spreading his activities across countries, he stayed ahead of authorities, always gone before the scam was discovered. The constant movement made him an international phantom, but also left him deeply isolated. Every interaction was calculated. Genuine connections were impossible. Despite the loneliness, his audacity grew. He even recruited women to pose as stewardesses, using them to cash checks as part of an elaborate cover. Frank's ability to manipulate people and systems reached new heights. The world was his stage, but the act was wearing thin. After 2 years as a pilot, Frank sensed law enforcement closing in and decided to lay low. In Georgia, a small lie on a rental application, claiming to be a doctor, spiraled into a new impersonation. Hired as a supervising resident, he bluffed his way through by deferring to interns and avoiding real emergencies. The constant fear of exposure eventually forced him to quit before disaster struck. Next, in Louisiana, he forged a Harvard Law transcript and, after intense study, passed the bar exam on his 3rd try. At 19, he worked for the Attorney General's office, always terrified a real Harvard grad would expose him. These roles highlighted Frank's mastery of appearances and quick study of human behavior. Confidence and the ability to talk the talk often trumped credentials. But the pressure and danger were immense. Lives were at stake and the risks were higher than ever. The thrill was fading, replaced by anxiety and fear. As Frank lived out his fantasies, law enforcement worldwide was closing in. The FBI, led by Agent Joseph Shea, painstakingly pieced together evidence from banks, airlines, and hotels. Frank's multiple identities made him a ghost. One man, many faces, impossible to pin down. Improved international communication finally gave authorities the break they needed. A flight attendant Frank had dated recognized him in France and tipped off police. The net tightened. The world that once felt limitless became a cage. Frank was constantly looking over his shoulder, paranoia replacing the thrill. The adventure devolved into a desperate struggle for survival. He knew it was only a matter of time before he was caught. The end was near. Frank's run ended quietly in Montpellier, France, at age 21, caught at a grocery store after a tip-off. The chase that had spanned continents and years was suddenly over in a single, unremarkable moment. For Frank, the world that once seemed full of endless possibilities had shrunk to the confines of a police car and the cold reality of handcuffs. His 5-year spree was over, but the consequences were just beginning. The authorities wasted no time, and Frank was quickly processed through the French legal system, facing the weight of his actions for the first time. Imprisoned in France under brutal conditions, he barely survived 6 months before being extradited to Sweden for more jail time. The French prison was notorious for its harshness, cold, damp, and unforgiving. Frank's health deteriorated rapidly, and he was left isolated, with only his regrets for company. After Sweden, he was sent back to the U.S. to face federal charges. Each transfer was a reminder that there was no escape from the consequences of his choices, no matter how far he ran. Sentenced to 12 years for bank fraud, forgery, and impersonation, Frank's life of luxury was replaced by prison monotony. Gone were the fine hotels and first-class flights. Now, every day was the same, marked by routine and restriction. He made several daring escape attempts, even convincing guards he was an undercover inspector, but was always recaptured. Each attempt was a desperate bid for freedom, a flash of the old Frank, but the walls always closed in again. Prison forced him to confront the reality of his actions, the lies, the risks, the people he hurt. Alone in his cell, Frank was left to reflect on the cost of his choices, and the pain he'd caused to so many. His talents had led him to a dark, lonely place. The skills that once dazzled the world now meant nothing behind bars, where trust was scarce and hope even scarcer. The boy who could be anyone was now just another inmate. In a sea of faces, Frank was stripped of his disguises, forced to blend in with the crowd he once outsmarted. Stripped of all his identities, he faced the consequences alone. There was no one left to fool, no one left to charm. Only the truth remained. The adventure was over. The reckoning had begun. The world outside moved on, but inside, Frank's journey was far from finished. But Frank's story wasn't finished yet. In the darkness of his cell, a new chapter was waiting to be written. After less than 5 years in prison, Frank was offered a deal: early release in exchange for helping the FBI catch other white-collar criminals. This was a pivotal moment in his life, a chance to turn his skills to a new purpose. The poacher became the gamekeeper, marking a remarkable turnaround. Frank's unique insight into the criminal mind made him an invaluable asset to law enforcement. Frank taught agents how to detect forgeries and understand the mind of a con artist. His lectures were not just informative, but transformative, changing the way agents approached their work. He founded a consultancy, saving banks billions by helping them prevent the very crimes he once committed. His expertise became a cornerstone for financial institutions aiming to bolster their security measures. His autobiography, Catch Me If You Can, became a bestseller and a hit film, cementing his place in popular culture. The story captivated audiences worldwide, showcasing his incredible journey. Frank's journey from criminal to respected security expert is a story of redemption. It highlights the power of second chances and the potential for personal growth. He proved it's never too late to change course and use one's talents for good. His life serves as an inspiration to many who seek to reinvent themselves. Today, he's a leading consultant and speaker on fraud prevention, working with major institutions worldwide. His insights continue to shape the field of security. His life challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider the incredible paths a human life can take. It's a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the human spirit. Frank Abagnale's story is a saga of rebellion, deception, and ultimately profound transformation. It's a narrative that continues to inspire and educate. The boy who once dared the world to catch him now helps protect it from those who try. His legacy is one of redemption and service, a true testament to the power of change.